So, hello.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us and welcome to today's session, the first in a series of webinars to come. It's hosted by the Careers and Industry team, represented today by myself, Clara, and my colleague, Heather. Today's topic will focus on creative resilience, and we'll be sharing practical tips on how to navigate any confusion during these trying times and adapting to the new normal in your studies and career. Heather?
So we're really pleased to have a fantastic creative panel today. So I'm delighted to introduce, I'll just say very quickly and then they'll talk afterwards. We've got Janice Beckles, business entrepreneur, coach and mentor. Pippa Hogg, head of studio from Creative Lab at Ravensbourne. Louise Prideaux, deputy dean, design school at Ravensbourne, and James Ward, deputy dean, screen school at Ravensbourne. I'll hand over now to James and we'll get going. Thank you.
Hopefully you're all feeling a little bit more at home, because I've just, the good thing about on Zoom, you can put up your backdrop. So you can see I've got a picture of Ravensbourne just to remind you, and it's almost like a sunny day. It's almost like we're there, isn't it? I could be sitting on level 7 with the backdrop behind me. So great. Well, thank you for coming today. It's our first Zoom webinar, which I think we've done so far at Ravensbourne. Our Learning and Teaching PGC course leader, Werner, is doing one for international speakers on Monday. So Tristan, who's on the call, is helping us today with the technology. So it's a good test for him and us next week. So I've got some of the questions which obviously Clara and Heather have sent through to us. And obviously I'm going to kill it for the people who follow me, because I'm just going to answer them all really quickly, and then they'll have nothing to talk about, but they'll perhaps give a different perspective to you. And a lot of it I'm going to talk about from a personal point of view about how I'm coping with this different environment. Obviously I'm a creative person, but I've worked in education for 25 years, and it depends on your personality. And one of the things about one of the questions someone put is, I can't seem to get motivation because I prefer going to university rather than working from home. And I think this is really about your personality. So some people particularly don't like going into Ravensbourne. They prefer to work from home. So they're probably in an element in different ways. And some people are, really enjoy that aspect. And I'm one of those people who really enjoys going into work and working with colleagues and being with colleagues and going to a different environment. So I'm not going to give you too much about my home life, but I live alone. So some of you have got the opposite to me, where some of you have got other siblings, and I might come to that, other people come to it. But one of the biggest things I found is making the step from going into work every day, going to Ravensbourne, coming home, switching off. I'm in a small flat, so I go from 1 minute is my desk with my computer up, and my computer's balanced on a pile of books at the moment. And then the evening I clear it all away. So for me mentally, one of the things I've decided to do is every night and every morning I pack up my Ravensbourne desk from my dining room table and basically eat my dinner off it and eat my breakfast off it whilst watching TV. So that's the starting point. So for me, chosen to set up and then to not set, then take it down again. So in the evening, I don't have to answer emails from Louise, my colleague, who you'll get to hear about in a moment. So that's a good way for me mentally. I think it's actually deciding how you're going to work over these next 7-8 weeks with that. So think about your workstation and what that might look to you. Motivation, it is really hard if you're a sociable person, and it's not just we can't go to Ravensbourne, we can't actually go to the pub or go to the park to meet our friends, or to stand anywhere close to anyone, or give anyone a hug. Or most people in the creative media industries give them a kiss, don't they? When they meet them, they go, "Hi, darling." It's particularly in fashion, my background. So you don't have that physicality as well. So it's a really strange thing of emotions you're battling. But the motivation I've done is actually, which you can do with your friends, and obviously we can do with your fellow students, is I've set up lunch dates, coffee mornings, afternoon teas, pub quizzes. So I'm purposely, but this is not with I'm doing it with my friends as well, but I'm also doing it with my work colleagues. So the people who work in my teams, we had a coffee morning the other day, some of us, where we don't talk about work. We bring a drink and we just chat about things normally. The other thing is we sat and had our lunch together with another one of my teams yesterday, where we actually all had our lunch, sat down in front of us, and talked and didn't mention work. So one of the things you might be to motivate yourself is think about how you're communicating with your friends at university you would be communicating with, and also about your colleagues, because some of your peers will be your colleagues, particularly if you're in film and doing group projects, and some will be your friends. So I think it's really good to, even if you're doing it through WhatsApp, I think a video actually, so you can do Zoom for free, you use your Ravensbourne Gmail and use Google, and you can then just do Hangouts and Meets, and actually think about how you build your social side to that Ravensbourne bit. Because if you are having that lack of motivation, it's probably the social side, and mixing with people. So think about that. And then flip it around. So if you are in a group project, which you would normally be with, and you normally get input from your peers. Now, I know most of you have had your briefs rewritten, so they won't be group projects, but they're individual projects. But make sure you create a little group around you to bounce those ideas off, because that's what you've been used to, particularly from the third year, 3 years of working together, negotiating. Sometimes you want to punch someone because they don't want to do your idea and you want to do your idea. Now you can do whatever you want, but sometimes that freedom's too much. So run that past students, your fellow groups, things, people you work with, or someone you always find perhaps a bit difficult in a group. You think, oh, they're always really irritating because they don't agree with what I say. Contact that person. So contact the person which isn't your friend, the annoying person who seems to disagree with everything you do, so you get that balanced opinion. Because obviously your tutors will be there to help you with that, but actually it's about getting that peer criticism going. I'm probably, I don't know if anyone's timing me, but I'm looking at Heather, so first word, I'm probably going to stop in 1 minute. And I'm just talking about the motivations. That's how I've talked about motivation. Obviously there's what I'd really love to know about, and obviously there's a chat button down there which we can start to see, is there's any ways which you've really been able to motivate yourself, or your friends have motivated you, or your colleagues or family. That'd be great for me to hear and all of us to hear, because we can share that in the group. And also one of the things I set up with my job, because I look after learning and teaching, I set up a learning and teaching section on Aula for all of the teaching staff. So if you feed things through to us, like these questions are put into Aula, and ideas about how we can motivate you, I'll share that with colleagues. So then the teaching staff can actually implement that into that teaching. Because my final one thing I would say to you is that it's all new for you. Your teaching staff have spent the whole Easter coming up with online delivery, from physical delivery in building. So they're all at a learning stage as well. So they really need your input. So if you think things are working really well, then actually give them a shout, tell them. If it's not working well, then actually again tell them, but think about how it might work better. So give lots of examples. But we're always here, as Louise and everyone else will come through in student services, but it would be great to get input from you over the next few weeks. And my email, which you probably got, it might be at the top, is james.ward@rave. It's not jward, it's james.ward, and you'll drop me a message. But good luck. Thanks very much.
Thank you, James. That's brilliant. Really, some very useful, insightful, comments and feedback and thoughts. So, so yeah, and let's just reiterate, please do send us, any questions and on the chat. So we'll go over to Pippa next, and then we'll go to Louise, and then we'll go to Janice.
Hello everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm Pippa, I'm Head of Studio at Creative Lab, which is Ravensbourne's newly formed in-house creative studio. And I think maybe it's best if we just stay around this topic, and I continue on talking about motivation, because I think James made some really lovely points. And mine would be to think about motivation is something that we feel inside, and so shift your mindset away from a location and more towards looking inward and what you might be able to do with yourself to change how you feel about your environment. So one thing that I have, I already practiced but have definitely ramped up since I've been in isolation, is meditation. I have a daily meditation practice. There's a really great one that you can join on Instagram by someone called Jay Shetty, which is at UK time 5:30, and it's I think a 10 or 15 minute 20-day program. So you can take part in things like that just for free on Instagram. And also I have kind of let my routine, my old routine, slip away, and have rebuilt a routine that's around my freedom. So although we might all be locked in our houses, We're not tied down to the 9-to-5 structure or school and work structures that we were once tied down to. So start to recognise when you feel most motivated and think about what's been happening that morning. Maybe you had a really nice breakfast or you went for a run, and start rebuilding a routine that works specifically for you as an individual, and accepting that that will fall outside of like a natural day-to-day structure. And also I think one really important thing is there's been so many messages online, everywhere you look, it feels like make the most of this time, do as much as possible, keep busy, which is all really valid and good, but also it's important to adjust your beliefs around productivity in this realm and accept that this is a difficult and tumultuous time, and that will affect how you work. And it might be a really positive effect long term, but also allowing yourself to just feel those things and be in those moments and factor that into your day rather than letting it take over or trying to be business as usual all the time. I think it's really important. I think going on to the next question about approaching creative projects in a non-creative space or environment, I think this does also speak to looking inward for your creative motivation. But I came across a really nice quote which I thought I'd share with you all, which is, when a photographer can't change a scene, they instead change the angle and the lens to capture the best of that scene. Similarly, when we can't change a situation in your life, change your perspective to get the best out of that situation. So I think that's a really important point to make, and I think it really speaks to creative resilience as well. One of the things that we're all going to get out of this is a newly practiced ability to adapt. We're not all made to change. That's a kind of personality trait, but this will definitely bring us together as creatives to make sure that we can adapt often. And I think it's important to do that, to change your perspective, and it will actually mean that you're very employable when you leave this situation, that you can always adapt. That's going to be something that sets you apart from competition.
That's brilliant, Pippa. Thank you. Again, also really insightful on, you know, adaptability and ways to de-stress. Really, really helpful. Louise, we'll go over to Louise next, and then Janice.
Okay, thank you. Yes, thanks very much, first of all, for inviting me onto this panel. It's really exciting to actually get to speak to students, and I'm hoping that as we're talking at you, that we get an opportunity to see some questions. So it'd be great if you have any questions of any sort. And just to remind you that James's remit at Ravensbourne is learning and teaching. My remit's student experience. So between us, we're really keen to understand how this, and I like the phrase new normal, and I really don't want to go back to the normal, because there was quite a lot about the normal that we knew before that wasn't good. And so I really appreciate what Pippa's saying about, you know, we could take this opportunity to reframe and look at a different perspective. So I'm hopeful that that's made us all sort of sit back and think. The other thing that I think is important is, and sometimes it's a good thing to think about, and sometimes it's a bit scary. But this isn't just us. This isn't just Ravensbourne that is experiencing this. It's the whole world, which is the scary bit, and everyone is affected. And I saw some of your questions about sort of a space at home, and you've got your family around you. There's no, you know, you might not have a study place, or you, etc. Just to let you know, I can't flip my screen around, but I've actually we started online work, if you like, remote working on the 19th of March. So we've been doing it for about 4 and a bit weeks. And I started off over there behind me on my sofa, and I was very comfy, and then I just thought, this doesn't feel like work. This just feels like people are giving me a call at home. So I remembered that I had a couple of desks upstairs. I brought them down. I've set up in the other end where I am a work table, like a studio table, with my laptop and everything. And I actually don't move it because I don't have to, James, I'm lucky. But that's where I work, and I don't work anywhere else now. I just work here. So I made a space. It took me a couple of days to make the space. I'm now sharing it with my son, who's a third-year architect student. So I'm a witness of what it's like to be a student right opposite me. He's working quite a lot. His laptop keeps breaking, so he's getting very cross. But, you know, that's the thing. I think by setting up some sort of our own timetable, our own routine, a space that I don't really come into other than when I come to work, and when I've finished working, I'll go and watch TV or go and eat or whatever. So it's that sort of make the space, even if that's your workspace is, you know, a corner of your room that you only go to work in. I think sometimes that helps, that sort of routine. And then the other thing I was going to suggest about what we do when we work is about planning. And you can't expect, you know, I actually realized that the first week of all of this, it all just felt too much. It was a big shock. There was lots coming at us. How do we do this? What do we do? Making decisions. And we had to sort of really start to plan. And I think that's the same for you as students, is to just plan your day, put your lunch break in, plan sort of little chunks of what you're expecting to do between 9:30 and lunchtime or whatever, and try and stick to that. And if you do stick to that, then I think the other part of it is a reward. So is a can of beer out the fridge a reward? Is a walk around the park a reward? Whatever is your reward, a cycle, watching Netflix, whatever it is, that's something that you deserve to do because you've made your day quite structured. And I think that helps. And to back up James, I think the social element is really massive, and that's going to help your motivation. And you know, we as designers are incredibly social. That's our business. We think of working for people, we talk to people, and suddenly you realize you're just in your own space around you. So make the most of that technology, WhatsApp video, Zoom, whatever you can get hold of to use, because I think that's important. And one thing I wanted to add was, you know, we're thinking about you guys as students and our business, but just to let you into a little insight, my husband runs a live events company, and what a time to run a live events company when we can't run any live events, we can't have any. And so at first we were really quite concerned about this company that's been running for 30 years. And what's happened is that we're now starting to do online events. So the whole industry is starting to adapt, pitching for online events, pitching for a totally different type of work. But it's been quite encouraging. So, you know, all I would say is when it feels really dark, we will adapt. We will change things. From my own experience, when I thought this could be the end of our business that we've run for 30 years, suddenly new shoots come up. So be patient, it will happen. And resilience is the most amazing thing that you can show. And I agree entirely with what's been said already, but I can guarantee when you go to interview or when you go for some work placement, think about how you reacted to this crisis and what you did and how resilient you were, because that will go an awful long way in an interview. That will really set you, as Pip says, set you in really high stead. And one of the things we're doing at Ravensbourne is to keep you busy. All our staff are sort of adapting. We've got this no detriment policy, so nobody's work will be viewed as any less because it's not physical. We've changed the briefs. We've gone through lots of sort of hoops to make sure that's all agreed at academic board, so that everybody will get to the end of term with an opportunity to meet the learning criteria and produce their work. So no one should really have any anxiety about that, as long as you engage, as long as you ask questions, and as long as you do those little planning. Reward yourself. Don't reward yourself for the rest of the day because you might have other stuff to do, but just sort of, you know, put things in chunks, and don't forget your friends. We're here too. So there's lots of sort of social elements that's important. So perhaps I've said enough now, sorry. Thank you, Heather.
That's brilliant, thank you. Also, you know, just so valuable, all of this information for the students and insights and your take on it as well. You know, I know it's been a busy time for everybody. Like you said, it's amazing, isn't it? 4.5 weeks. Yep. That this has been going on. Thank you, fantastic. So we'll pass over to Janice, and then we'll see if there's any other questions, and then, you know, we'll sort of start to round up. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and Heather, thank you very much for inviting me onto this webinar. So, as you know, my name is Janice Beckles, and I work with creatives. I work with individuals who wish to start and grow their business. I provide a range of services which include mentoring and coaching. So one of the key things, it's really about helping people to step out of their comfort zone. So starting your business, what we're going through at the moment in terms of remote working, in terms of the lockdown, it's quite common to a lot of startup companies and entrepreneurs. In the beginning, sometimes they find it quite lonely. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to share just some of the tips that I provide to my clients, and I've also provided to a number of students at Ravensbourne, and feel free to ask any questions at the end. My colleagues have covered some of the points. So one of the key things during this time, or during your careers, is really setting a schedule. So something that I recommend is look at the month ahead, look at the next 3 weeks, the next 4 weeks, and really start to schedule your time. Now, one of the first things that you need to schedule is family time and friends. Because when some of you have started out in business, you started freelancing, you may be doing internships, and you may be doing really well, you might be making money. And in terms of businesses, the way that I see it from my point of view is, what's the point of having all of this success if there's no one to share it with? So that's one of the key things that I would strongly recommend. In terms of scheduling your time, schedule that time for family and friends, and especially during this time. I know that James has given some amazing tips for that. Then think about your particular working style or your particular study style. So for me, I come alive at night. So that's when I get my moments of inspiration, in the wee hours of the night. That's when I'm most productive. 7 o'clock in the morning, maybe not. I might be at the gym, or I might go for a run at that time. But in terms of studying, I know my weaknesses, or I know my areas of development. So there are certain times when there might be certain pieces of work that I have to do, and I might be putting off, so procrastination might set in. So one of the things that I will do, very similar to what James and Louise suggested, is clearing my space. Also, one of the things that really helps me to focus, and something that I do recommend to everyone that I work with, is, believe it or not, classical music. Or find, the genre of music that works for you, that helps to really get you into that zone, so that you're able to complete your studies or develop and network yourself. Then the next thing that I would say is network. Look at opportunities. Speak to your fellow students, your teachers, your lecturers. Network. The reason that I say network is, for some of you, you might be looking for some freelance work. Guaranteed, there are a number of organisations and businesses that really need your services right now. So in terms of networking platforms, there's LinkedIn, there's Meetup, there's also Eventbrite as well. I know that Heather's going to share some resources with everyone later. So think about networking. Think about people that are close to you. Think about people that know you, like you, and trust you. Tell them what you're looking for. Tell them, if you're stuck and you're looking for inspiration, guaranteed they will help you. And then, so I talked about knowing your strengths. Now, at this moment in time, there's so much out there in terms of personal development, in terms of workshops. So I'd also strongly suggest to develop your skills. Look at your areas of development. Do you need to maybe develop your interview skills? Do you maybe need to develop your skills on presenting? Will you need to be presenting on Zoom for some opportunities? So look at different ways that you can develop your skills. And then when it comes to connecting and networking and socializing, make the most of Zoom. There's also, if you're collaborating with other students, there's Microsoft Teams, there's Google Hangouts. Just like when you're at Ravensbourne and you're in the library, you're in the Learning Resource Centre, and you're all there with your headphones, you're doing your work, you're still amongst people, so you're having that social interaction. You can very much do the same via Zoom, Google Hangouts, even WhatsApp. So that's also something that I'll recommend. So I talked about growing your network. And then the other thing that I'll strongly recommend at this time, each of you, you're studying different disciplines. So there might be, you might be studying architecture, it might be fashion, it might be photography. Find out who your professional association or membership organisation are. So for architects, it's RIBA, RIBA, okay? Or there's the British Fashion Council. Follow them on Twitter. See what tips they're providing. Guaranteed there'll be different ways that you'll be able to develop yourself, make yourself more employable, or make yourself be able to stand out from the crowd when it comes to freelancing. And then the final thing that I will say is invest in you. Make the most of the resources at the university, but also at this time, be mindful who you surround yourself with, who you're listening to, what you're watching, what you're listening to, and what you're reading. So in addition to the resources at Ravensbourne, you might want to look at a website called Mind Tools or Business Balls. And then there is another one called Global Gurus. This is where there are people that are leaders within their field. And what I suggested, don't buy anything just for the moment, but just follow them online and see what nuggets of information they're sharing. And also in terms of other sources of news that are relevant to your particular industry, there's another website which is Right Relevance. So Right with an R, rightrelevance.com. Strongly recommend you look at that. You'll be able to find influencers, organisations, individuals that will definitely help you in your career. So that's me, Janice Beckles. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. That's great. Sorry for that delay. I was just looking at one of the questions, but absolutely brilliant. Thank you, and really good resources as well that we will send around afterwards. So I think we've got just a question that we've got. Question from one of our attendees. Would you say that it's important not to stick within your subject area and perhaps learn about, say, a different design area? Would you say this is too overwhelming?
I think the main thing is actually to consider the fact that this is the first time we've all had to work like this. So I appreciate that word overwhelming. And I think the task in hand at the moment for students is to complete this term, complete the project. So, you know, that's the first case in hand. You know, make sure that you're engaging with your tutors, making sure that you're aware of what it is they want you to do. But I do think that, you know, come the 19th of June, it's possible that we might not be back in. We might have other areas that you can start to engage with. We might have some short courses going on. I've no idea what we'll be planning. But nevertheless, that it would be, perhaps if I'm hopeful we won't still be in this situation, but I think it is a good time, as Janice has mentioned, to start following really interesting sort of resources. I'm a graphic designer, but I follow Design online just for the design element of it. There's quite a lot of interesting articles. And I've actually found as well that this has been quite a good time to not just rely on the TV to relax. I've actually gone and read a book, which I don't always do as much as I would like, and just started to think about other areas. But I do think that it's a good point to think about. You know, I would say concentrate. My first answer is concentrate on the units that you need to be concentrating on for your course, but also think about planning, as I said before. On areas that you are really interested in and that you could perhaps at some point get involved in. So I think it was a good question to sort of think about diversifying, but just, yeah, don't overwhelm yourself. Don't feel you have to do these things. You know, I saw a massive flurry of people sort of saying, oh, I'm baking, or I'm knitting, or I'm painting. Don't feel, if you're not, that you're missing out on anything. You have to do it in your own way.
I think I just agree with Louise. I mean, you've got your university work which you need to do, and obviously part of your research, if you're in confined space, you might look at different areas to fuel the research you're doing. So you might, if you're doing a film project, you might see what's happening in the fashion industry post this lockdown environment. But also, you know, on top of that, we were talking about how you plan your social time, how you plan your family. You might want to think about doing, as Louise said, a short course. I know Josh Fortune, who teaches my DFP course, did a small course on animated GIFs or something. He just ran it through Aula, and he had something like 600 Ravensbourne students sign up from lots of different courses. So, you know, there may be things like that, but also you might want to create it with your friends and your colleagues, or you might see things which you want to do, or, you know, keep in touch. I mean, hopefully, obviously it's very early days with the online delivery at Ravensbourne, but, you know, the Ravensbourne shorts, you know, may have some digital ones in the future and things like that coming up, which I won't, that may or may not be happening just quite yet, because it's all very early days, but have a look out for what's going on, and also start things up yourself. So we've got societies, so contact the student union. So I know they've been doing film nights through Netflix. So maybe if you think, sorry, excuse me, if you think about something which you could do, contact the student union and say, oh, I want to do this. And then hopefully they'll support you with that and get that out to other students as well. So yeah, think creatively, as Pippa said, think out of your comfort zone, but don't forget that project needs to be done.
I think that's a really good point from both Louise and James. And I just wanted to add, or think about it in the wider context, that it might not be considering looking at another subject area, but how you can incorporate the digital element into your own area of study. I think that will be provide you with a bit of security, knowing that you're looking at things for the long term and what the long-term impact on your industry might be. We obviously are all in a time of the unknown, but I think we can make a kind of educated assumption that a lot of what we're seeing now with Zoom and online platforms will stay, or at least stay for the midterm of a year to 5 years. So making sure that you're thinking in those ways as you leave Ravensbourne, or as you approach your next project, will just help you ready yourself for what you might find when you leave Ravensbourne. We're all kind of doing that at the moment, and I think definitely focus on your course and get that done. But as James mentioned, there should be some really exciting things coming from the factory and some other creative workshops that we're planning for the whole of the term and summer that should help support you enter those fields and get upskilled in some of those things.
Thank you, Pippa. Someone's just asked a question for us to post the links from Janice, and I think Heather's actually posted them now.
Yeah, we've put those on the links that Janice was talking about. We've put those on the chat as well. So thank you very much. Absolutely fantastic information from James and Louise and Pippa and Janice. Really helpful. Even I found some useful tips in there as well. And great that you had the time to join us, and we look forward to many more of these webinars. And even though, you know, it's a new normal, as we talked about, but actually it does give us an opportunity to really engage in a different way and to be more focused. And as everybody has reiterated here, that, you know, all the different departments and personally, we're all here to support the students and each other. So thank you again, and we look forward to hosting another session. Thank you.
Thank you.